Warning, this video depicts the abuse of a child. It may be triggering for some, so viewer discretion is advised. Orlando, Florida, January 1st, 2021. On December 31st, about an hour before 2021 would kick in, do you remember what you were doing? More than likely, I was asleep. I'm not the girl that I used to be. But let me tell you what Johnny and his family were doing. Johnny, not his real name. He would enter Mrs. Potato, a restaurant in Orlando. He was accompanied by his mother, Christian Swan, 31 years old, and his stepfather, Tim Wilson II, 34 years old, and his 4-year-old sister. It was about to be a new year for the family of 4 who entered Mrs. Potato. The manager, a woman by the name of Flavian Carvalho, she would wait on the table. She went over to the family's table to receive their order. Everyone ordered but Johnny. When Carvalho asked, was the boy going to eat, the stepfather replied he was going to eat when he got home. Carvalho glanced at him. She noticed the boy was bruised all over his face, is what she saw. He was underweight, very skinny. He had on a hooded shirt that covered his head. He wore glasses and a germ mask over his face. However, she could still see the bruises and the scratches between his eyebrows. Carvalho also found it strange that Johnny sat far away from his family, secluded by himself. This was obviously normal behavior for the family, but this wasn't normal behavior for Carvalho. It didn't look right to her. Even though she had an 18-year-old daughter at home, this was very concerning for her. She would pick up their order and come back to the table with their hot food, and the family began to eat. Johnny watched. Carvalho, she had to think fast. She would flash a handwritten sign behind the family's back while they ate, asking him, was he okay? He nodded no. Do you need help? He nodded yes. The family was none the wiser. Carvalho called the police.
Orlando Police 911.
We have some customers here with 2 kids. One of the kids is with a lot of bruises.
She added to her 911 call, give me some advice. He has bruising all over. What should I do? He is not eating. While the family ate in front of Johnny, Carvalho sat and waited for the police to come. She would see that the police had finally pulled up to the restaurant. That was probably the longest wait ever. Happy New Year! 2021 had finally arrived along with the police. The Orlando Police Department would talk to Johnny. He fell. He fell out of the bed. He was wrestling with his stepfather. It was an accident. It was all just an accident. Of course, Johnny was scared. He was 11 years old, but he had taken the bravest step ever in responding to the waitress's requests. He was in distress, and she knew it. The police did not believe a word that Johnny said. They had taken him to Arnold Palmer Hospital for Children in Florida. The extent of the injuries were clear. His eyelids and his ears even were bruised. He was 20 pounds underweight, malnourished, dehydrated. It hurt to touch him. He hurt when he rolled up his sleeves on his own body. He was in tremendous pain and suffering. Johnny had been tortured. Inside the investigation of Johnny, a search warrant revealed Johnny was kept in a separate room at the hotel where his family were staying, duct taped over the peephole of the room in which was used for storage. That's where Johnny slept, away from his mother, his sister, and his stepfather. A room for storage? Johnny said that the abuse had started around Christmas, when his father had tied him to a pull dolly and beat him, but authorities knew that the abuse had started far longer than Christmas. Tim Wilson was a military man. He had a military background, so corporal punishment was pushed on Johnny a lot. He would do military-style exercises excessively. He had to hold a plank for 30 minutes. He had to do handstands for a number of times, strapped to his ankles, upside down to doors, beaten with bent metal poles, wooden brooms, closed fists, back scratchers, ratchet straps around him to tie Johnny up. He hung upside down by his feet, beaten by his stepfather. He had been deprived of food and water just days before this restaurant event. All this was done by his stepfather, 360-pound Tim Wilson II, while his mother did absolutely nothing, and she admitted it. She stood by and she watched. She didn't get her child any type of medical attention. Of course not. The police would surely be involved had she did anything like that. Timothy Wilson II and Christian Swan were arrested. Wilson on multiple accounts of child abuse and Swan on child neglect on January 6, 2021. It's believed the children were placed in a care facility away from Swan until further actions happened around this time, and this was around the time that the abuse was discovered. Quote, "This child was destined to be killed." This was said by the officer, Orlando Rowland. Thank goodness Carvalho intervened and didn't let that child leave that restaurant. See something, say something. And she did just that. A GoFundMe was made, and she collected almost $46,000. She had no idea that she would be rewarded like this, but she knows she saved this child's life. I think that's worth way more than $46,000. Johnny will never forget her, and I hope he's doing well. Wilson is scheduled to be sentenced on August 19th, 2022, and I will be watching. When this story aired, it shocked many, but it was not a shock to Wilson's ex-wife, Amanda Powell. She had ended their volatile marriage. She said when she met Wilson, he came off as nice and sweet in the beginning, but later on he was very controlling. Her children from a previous relationship were 2 and 4 years old at the time. He would whoop them. She suggested time out, but that's not what Wilson wanted to do. He wanted to beat them. She knew that this wasn't right. He wasn't even their biological father. And I don't even believe that Mrs. Powell would stand by and let the biological father do beating to that extent. He was abusing her children. He then started to beat them with belts. And he tried to control her from even using the family car. And she couldn't even speak to the other military wives around the time where they lived. He continued to beat the kids with belts. She told him, if he did it again, he would be sorry. and he did. He did it again. She said they had a blowout fight. He hit her. He tried to choke her. She was able to get a hold of a jury box, and she hauled off and she hit him as hard as she could in the face with a glass top jury box. Military police came and they took her to jail. He had bruising on his face. She was the one that caused it. And now her violent husband was alone with her babies while she sat in jail, and there was nothing that she could do. She knew that she had to get away from him, and she had to get her children away from him. Wilson would drop the charges. She was released from jail, and she grabbed her babies and fled to her family in Alabama. The marriage would soon be over. Amanda Powell, a woman who protected her children. We as bystanders, we have to witness. Some women won't. They won't protect their children. We have to protect their children for them. If you see something, say something. You might save a child's life.